have officially been a stay-at-home mom for 9 months, and in those 9 months, I have definitely learned that not everything can go to plan. Maybe I am a little bit of a perfectionist when it comes to this kind of thing, and I've really had to learn how to reset my expectations and continuously lower them so that I'm not always disappointed in myself and when something doesn't go right. So today I wanted to take you along for some regular days in homemaking. These are some days that are certainly not aesthetic and when you just have to make the best of what you got. I was really excited to share this recipe with you, especially with Christmas coming up. This is my honey pecan granola. I made this as Christmas gifts last year and people loved it. A lot of people asked for the recipe, so I went ahead and made up a small batch to have around for me and my husband to eat on, but also to give away as gifts. I've also been doing a little bit of gingerbread granola, and I have a plan to try a honey almond granola as well. But this one is a favorite recipe of mine because the granola actually clumps together really well. I feel like when you're making homemade granola, it doesn't always stay clumpy, and I think that's kind of like my favorite part, especially if you're eating it as a cereal. You don't just want a bunch of like loose oats in your cereal bowl. Hopefully that makes sense, but I think it's the honey that helps us stick together so well, and it's so simple. You just throw all your dry and wet ingredients together. I think the key is in baking it, just baking it in a packed layer, turning it halfway through and then packing it down once again, and also not over baking it. It can be easy to do that with granola. But as I was making this and before I came back to make myself a yogurt bowl, I realized I needed to immediately go down to the courthouse. So I ran out of the house, and even though I had planned to show you this beautiful granola making process, it got cut a little short. Another thing that went awry was my sourdough bread. Here I am just scoring this loaf. I was going to go see a friend this day and take her homemade Christmas basket, which I will show you in a moment. But I wanted to do a beautiful score on this loaf, and when I baked it, you couldn't even see it anymore. It was just completely torn apart. I think the bread must have risen too quickly in the oven and it ripped up a lot of the design, so I didn't even show you all the score. But at least you can see the homemade Christmas basket. It turned out very cute and my friend was happy to receive it. And I can't wait to share the rest of the Christmas baskets with my friends and family this year. I think giving away that basket got me really into the Christmas spirit. One of the traditions my husband and I started when we got married 4 years ago was drinking hot chocolate and driving around and looking at Christmas lights. And I really got into making homemade marshmallows last year while I was pregnant because I drink a lot of healthy hot chocolate and a lot of bone broth hot chocolate. So I was craving marshmallows in my hot chocolate, and I thought, why don't I make homemade marshmallows sweetened with maple syrup? I'll make hot chocolate, we'll feed the baby early, and then we'll go look at lights. I knew that this was probably too ambitious, and I should have known that my 9-month-old is really not going to care about Christmas lights, but it was just the romantic idea in my head had me so excited that I set off making all of this. But it went awry very quickly. When I was making marshmallows last year, the base of them was a whipped egg white mixture. And this time, the base of it is a sugar syrup that you pour into gelatin that has bloomed and you whip it up. So I got my maple syrup and water boiling. I had to fight with it for quite a long time to keep it from boiling over my pan. Definitely should have used a larger pan. I was reading the recipe once I poured this hot syrup and water mixture into the gelatin to whip it up, and it said to whip it for, I believe it was like 10 to 15 minutes, but it also said to not over whip it. So I set my timer and I was looking at it, and before it ever even got to the 10-minute mark, it looked very stiff. So unbeknownst to me, I had definitely over whipped this, and it made it completely unmanageable. If you've never made marshmallows, what I believe you're looking for is a soft peak consistency. However, I ended up with more of like a very stiff peak, more like meringue consistency that set up almost instantly. So if you were making this right, this marshmallow fluff would easily fall off of the whisk. You would be able to pour it into your pan, push the marshmallows down into a beautiful rectangular shape, and then set them and cut them later. As you can see here, mine was looking a little bit more like brain matter and would just completely bounce back anytime you tried to push it down. I even wet my fingers with some water trying to see if I could like wrangle it a little bit more, or I also grabbed some silicone molds, tried to push it in there, see if it would, but it was just not having it. The bright side is these tasted very good. It was just the texture of them was slightly wrong. So they were definitely edible, and we still use them in our hot chocolate, but they look just revolting if I'm being honest. And I still wanted to share this with you all because, and don't worry, there's more bad things happening later, but I still wanted to share this all with you all because I don't want to ever come off as everything goes well and perfect and great, because I think I hold myself to that standard and thinking that other people always have the desired result, and it's just not true. So I just wanted to share how sometimes your marshmallows are going to look crazy, but because I used a whole cup of maple syrup in there, I am definitely going to eat them, and we're still going to use them. So I got started also making my homemade hot chocolate. This is my tried and true recipe. I have made this for a couple years now, and I developed this recipe actually as a hot drink to have when you're on your period, because it has magnesium in it with the raw cacao, and then I'll also add collagen to it, so it has protein. It's sweetened with maple syrup, so it is refined sugar free. So this is my tried and true recipe. It is pretty hard to mess up, although I did decide to heat it up on the stove, and usually I just do it in the microwave. And I scalded the milk a little bit because I wasn't paying attention and was focusing on the baby. It looks extra dark just because I did a blend of black cocoa powder and regular cacao just to switch things up. I don't know why, what I was thinking. But here are my sad little marshmallows, and I will include the recipe link for the marshmallows in my own hot chocolate recipe down below if you're interested to check them out. But here it is with some whipped cream that ran out halfway through as I was putting it on, so it just looks like a sad little mound. But before we could even get in the car to go look at lights, it was cold. And then later, I accidentally spilled it on my son's blanket. So we were driving around for about 20 to 30 minutes looking at lights. My son hated the whole thing. I think he doesn't like being in his car seat in the dark. And as you can see, there's barely Christmas lights anywhere. We were driving around multiple neighborhoods, and it would be any one given house may have lights on a street, or maybe one or two. So it was all in all quite the fail of an evening, but that's okay. It's a new day, and I wanted to show you a few more things just to make sure you still get a cozy vibe from this video, because that's what I love to bring you all. But I think the chaos and honesty is also important. I have a fun little advent calendar filled with truffles that my husband and I alternate taking something out of the box every evening of December, counting down to Christmas. And that's always a fun way to kick off our evenings. I had a lot of work for me to do after my crazy cooking explosion the day before with my failed marshmallows and hot chocolate. The oven needed a good deep clean, and I had another loaf of sourdough bread I needed to bake and get in the freezer. So I decided to put on some Christmas music and get to work cleaning up while my husband was watching the baby. I guess my New Year's resolution needs to be working on my sourdough scoring skills, but I decided to try and make this one a little snowflake. I think it worked out pretty good. I'm still having a little bit of trouble with it tearing, so I just need to work on probably the pressure of using my scoring tool to do it correctly. But I'm going to take this loaf and put it in the freezer so that when I am giving out my Christmas baskets in the next few weeks, I don't have to be making a bunch of loaves all at once. So I'm going to start slowly stocking up in the freezer, and then I can pull them out the day before, let them thaw, and then give them to my friends and family. If you have sourdough as a skill in your tool belt, definitely consider making them for friends and family. It is a relatively inexpensive thing that you can make for them, but it is always appreciated, at least with my friends and family, because if people do not have the ability to make them, or even if they do, your option is either making it yourself or spending at least $10 on a loaf. So it's definitely a very welcome gift. And if you compare it with some jams or jelly or a little bit of honey or butter, it's definitely a very, very loved and appreciated gift. I have a whole blog post on homemade gift ideas, and there's still time to make them, so if you want to check that out, that will be linked in the description below. Some other things on the to-do list tonight was just to get some yogurt out of the fridge. I had been straining, and unfortunately I strained it way too much. It was like the texture of cream cheese. So I added back in some regular yogurt, and then I got started on making another batch just so I can stay on top of things. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and it brought you a little peace and comfort if your days don't go perfectly to plan. If you enjoyed this, make sure you subscribe and like this video, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.